Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey present Locked On Sports Today.
The 72 Dolphins can pop that bottle of champagne because the Eagles are undefeated no more. And speaking of defeat, are the defending Super Bowl champs going to miss the playoffs this year? And the Saints need to make a change at quarterback if they have any hope of turning their season around. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
And just like that, there are no more undefeated teams left in the National Football League. The Washington Commanders stun the Philadelphia Eagles 32-21 in Philly on Monday night, thanks to what Philly fans are going to say is a bad call at the end of the game, but also plenty of mistakes to point to as well. Gino Camilleri from Locked On Eagles joins me now. And Gino, what did you think of that call at the end? Third down, if the Eagles get a stop, they have a chance to go win the game, and Brandon Graham gets called for a late hit. What did you think of that call?
I think the call is independent of the result of the game. I mean, that's not the reason that they lost. They played bad fundamental football when you look at it, but I don't know. It's so ticky-tacky. It looks like Brandon Graham was giving up as well. He's never been a vicious player. Heineke was down. It's so ticky-tacky this day and age. But moral of the story, that wasn't the reason they lost the game. They would have still had to go down the field and score. And the way that their offense was looking the last couple drives as well, things weren't looking great. They weren't taking care of the football. They lost the time of possession battle. They weren't getting it off the field on third down. That's a recipe to lose football games.
Yeah, 3 turnovers in this game. And then defensively, they couldn't cover Scary Terry. Terry McLaurin had 8 catches for 128 yards. And for as well as Darius Slay has played this season, Terry McLaurin got the best of him, and he's done that to a couple elite corners this season. Did it to Jair Alexander a couple weeks ago against the Green Bay Packers. What was the biggest thing? You said that the call was not the game. So what was the biggest thing that caused Philly to take its first L of the year?
I think it comes down to a lesson that we might have overlooked, but if you were really reading between the lines, Jonathan Gannon, in what he has done calling defenses, it's been skeptical, especially in big moments. Situationally, third down tonight, if you look at it, the way that they were playing early on, where they're just playing zone coverage, not even giving their cover corners a chance to go out there and cover guys like Terry McLaurin. They were eating them up in those intermediate areas. And then they do go play man, but who's the guy they put on Terry McLaurin? It's a safety in Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. We have Darius Slay, who could travel all over the field. Yeah, he's going to win some of those matchups, but that's what elite football players do. Terry McLaurin has given the Eagles fits and many other teams fits ever since he has gotten into the NFL. So you're going to lose in some spots, but at the same time, you can't stop throwing punches. You're in a boxing match. You can't just sit there with your hands over your face and expect the other team not to stop throwing. The Eagles didn't start blitzing until halfway through the third quarter, where they finally started to hit home. Jonathan Gannon has played soft as a defensive coordinator in the National Football League and allowed mid to average quarterbacks to have very good success in the past 2 years.
On the flip side, Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown were really nowhere to be found. On 12 combined targets, they managed just 46 yards through the air. Where were those guys in this game? Was that a receiver problem, a schematic problem, a quarterback problem? These are your best players. Where were they?
A.J. Brown didn't look right today. I don't know what it was, and he had a chance on that long interception that Jalen threw. It was in his hands. It hit A.J. Brown's hands. Hats off to the defensive back for making a great play, but they just didn't look right. The offense didn't look right. It didn't seem like they had any rhythm. They only give their running backs 4 carries in the first half. As good as Shane Steichen is in spots, scheming up good plays, getting things rolling, on drive in and drive out, there are times where he gets in this funk where it's almost Chip Kelly-esque, where they're just so boneheaded.
Stay up to date all year on the Philadelphia Eagles by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and the Locked On Eagles podcast on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts. Coming up, are the defending Super Bowl champs going to miss the playoffs this year? Here's what to look for on BetOnline, your number one spot for all your gambling needs. 2 MACtion games on the docket tonight, starting with the top team in the MAC East. Ohio has a 5-game win streak on the line as they travel to Ball State. BetOnline has the Bobcats favored by 4. The other game has the MAC West leaders, Toledo hosting Bowling Green. BetOnline likes the Toledo Rockets by 16 at home. BetOnline, where the game starts. An unbelievably sad story unfolded on Sunday night at the campus of the University of Virginia. 3 UVA football players were shot and killed, and 2 other students were wounded. Authorities apprehended the suspect in the shooting without incidents in Henrico County, Virginia, just before 11 a.m. Monday morning. The suspect had been identified as Christopher Darnell Jones Jr., who was listed on the Cavaliers' 2018 football roster as a freshman running back. The 3 players who were killed were junior receiver Lavelle Davis Jr. of Dorchester, South Carolina, junior receiver Devin Chandler of Huntersville, North Carolina, and junior defensive end Deshaun Perry of Miami. University President Jim Ryan gave those names at a news conference yesterday. Ryan said the shooting took place on a charter bus after students returned to campus from Washington, D.C. on Sunday to attend a play as part of a class field trip. The 2 wounded students were not identified by the university president. On May 28th, the Atlanta Braves called up Michael Harris to make his major league debut, even though he had played just 43 games above the Class A minor league level. Yesterday, he was named NL Rookie of the Year. Harris beat teammate Spencer Strider for the award after hitting .297 with 19 bombs and 20 stolen bases. In the American League, it was Seattle Mariners outfielder Julio Rodriguez taking home the top rookie award. He won it in a true landslide, getting 29 of 30 possible first-place votes. Rodriguez hit .284, led all rookies with 28 home runs, and got 25 steals. Only 2 players since 1900 have accumulated at least 28 home runs, 25 stolen bases, and 25 doubles in their age 21 or younger seasons. Since 1900. Those 2 names, Mike Trout and Andrew Jones. The Toronto Raptors got a road win over the Detroit Pistons.
It's Delano Banton's world, and we all just live in it. Sean Woodley here from Locked On Raptors to break down the Toronto Raptors' 115-111 win over the Detroit Pistons in Detroit on Monday night. And the big takeaway from this one is that the Raptors survived this game somehow because of Delano Banton. They came into this game without Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, their 2 best offensive players, as well as Gary Trent Jr., a 3rd starter, and Precious Achiuwa, one of their 7 best players and one of their 3 best defenders. It was pretty grim. They also lost Otto Porter Jr. at halftime of this one to a foot injury, and so it was on the shoulders of Delano Banton, the second-year, former second-round pick, and he had himself a career night. 27 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks, and 1 victory for the Raptors, in spite of all the injuries, in spite of rough nights offensively and defensively from Scotty Barnes, and a bit of an uneven shooting performance from OG Anunoby, the 2 guys right there who were supposed to kind of carry the day. It was not those guys, it was Delano freaking Banton, who will certainly be in Nick Nurse's rotation plans going forward, even more so than he has been so far this season after a brilliant effort on Monday night to steal the Raptors a win. The Raptors now play just 3 games over the next 11 days after a very busy stretch. Hopefully they can start to get some bodies back here, but if not, Delano Banton's there. They're going to be fine, right? I'll have more broken down on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Raptors. Be sure to tune in.
And the New York Islanders skated to a road victory over the Ottawa Senators.
The New York Islanders did just enough to get past the Ottawa Senators 4-2. Gil Martin of Locked On Islanders here. Islanders downing the Senators, and they had to overcome some of their own mistakes. The Islanders taking far too many penalties, including a key double minor by Scott Mayfield that set up a 5-on-3. But with the exception of 1 power play goal, they killed it off and were able to hang on for a 4-2 win. Strong games by Matthew Barzal and Noah Dobson contribute to the offense. Brock Nelson adds an empty net goal. And the Islanders, they didn't panic. They didn't play particularly well, but they were efficient and they got the job done. Just enough offense and solid penalty killing overall to overcome the foolish penalties that made this a game. The Islanders continue their winning ways. For more, watch and listen to the Locked On Islanders podcast with me, Gil Martin, wherever you get your podcasts.
It was a playoff rematch that did not even come close to meeting the kind of stakes that we saw last year with the Arizona Cardinals and the LA Rams. The Rams on their way to a Super Bowl title. They are looking anything but super right now. A 27-17 Cardinals win behind Colt McCoy. This was supposed to be Kyler Murray against Matt Stafford, and it was two quarterbacks that the average football fan is going, wait, who? That guy's still in the NFL? Joining me now from Locked On Rams, Travis Rogers. And Travis, not the season here at 3-6 LA was hoping for. And now Cooper Kupp is hurt. Matthew Stafford is hurt. Where does this team go from here?
Yeah, I think that's the question, right, Peter? And I think the answer is I don't think anybody knows. I don't think Sean McVay knows. I don't think that Raheem Morris has an idea of what they're doing on defense all of a sudden for the first time really all season. That didn't look like a good enough piece. They've been, staying in some of these games because of defense. Fact of the matter is, and you mentioned it, that playoff game they had against Arizona on Monday night in the wild card round was the last time that the Rams had a game that looked like they knew exactly what they were doing and it went according to plan. Since then, they've been in one-score games in the playoffs, and no complaints about how that went last year, obviously. but all, they opened up their season against Buffalo and got steamrolled. They won a couple of games after that, but not in particularly decisive fashion, including one against Arizona. And really since then, when they were 2-1, they've lost 5 of their last 6 games and have looked bad doing it. It's an offensive line that has had 9 different combinations in 9 weeks. It's a group of running backs who have been equally ineffective across the board. It's a quarterback in Matthew Stafford who has been completely ineffective. And outside of Cooper Kupp, not one person on offense making plays. That's not just a, hey, if we can get this fixed, we'll start to look like ourselves. That's everything not working. And I don't know how you get that fixed in week 11 of the NFL season.
And the trade deadline come and gone. They were reportedly in on some of the big names that were out there, tried hard to get Christian McCaffrey, but this team has not looked all season like they are a Christian McCaffrey away from competing in the NFC. So to what do you attribute the lion's share of this letdown? Because this does not feel like a hangover. This feels like a roster that just doesn't look or play the way that we saw them last year.
Yeah, I think it's 2 things. I think it's number one, it's the players who were here last year that are back, in particular those star players, whether it's Aaron Donald or Jalen Ramsey, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and then throw in a couple of other very big names, Bobby Wagner, Allen Robinson along the way. They've been somewhere between okay to maybe a little bit better than that, but nobody's been terrific. Maybe Bobby Wagner's been pretty good. Aaron Donald has been good by normal people standards, but by Aaron Donald standards, maybe not quite as good. And then you take everything else that isn't those top tier guys, and the talent just isn't there. That little extra something that they had last year isn't there. This is a team that has been headlined by some very big names for the last couple of years. And this is the other side of F them picks. This is the other side of all in. This is the other side of all of that stuff that eventually that credit card bill, you say, oh, I'll take that and I'll take that and I'll take that. You have to pay it at some point, and they're paying it right now.
So you mentioned that no one really knows how to move forward. So what can you find of value here the rest of the season, even if there's not a clear path to like, okay, this is how they get back to being NFC title contenders. What can they still gain here the rest of the way in what looks like an also ran kind of season?
Yeah, it's interesting because they don't even have a first-round draft pick next year. So this could be a top 5, top 10, almost certainly pick at this point that's going to go to the Detroit Lions. So it's not like you're thinking, okay, we're going to get a good pick. I think, and when we'll see what it looks like when we get some definitive information with Cooper Kupp's injury, how long, if at all, he's going to be out, whether or not Matthew Stafford can come back. But I'm sure you've heard them say this, that you're not only auditioning for your own team, you're auditioning for the other 31 teams out there every single week that you put a performance on film. And I really do think that's where the Rams are at this point. They're figuring out whether Tyler Higbee is that guy, whether Van Jefferson is that guy, whether they can find a way to use Allen Robinson effectively. I think everybody right now is auditioning either for their role on this team for next season or their role on another team for next season. Because you look at the NFC picture, you look at the NFC West in particular, there's a mathematical path to them getting back, but from a practical path, it does not exist. And I think Sean McVay is probably going to start evaluating what he has moving forward, and I think it starts next week against New Orleans.
Yeah, this season has gone from F them picks to F this season.
Right.
Travis, thank you so much.
Stealing that.
Stay up to date all here on the LA Rams by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and the Locked On Rams podcast on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts. Coming up, if the Saints hope to resurrect their season, and if Dennis Allen hopes to keep his job in New Orleans, they have to make a change at QB. The New Orleans Saints have not lived up to the hype. In fact, they've more like lived up to their old nickname, the Aints. After drawing a lot of sleeper picks in the preseason, the Saints haven't woken up quite yet. As Ross Jackson surmises on Locked On Saints, there's a clear change that needs to be made.
Something's got to change. And the easiest place to make a change is going to be at quarterback. I know I've been up and down this hill for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks now. I know it. And you're probably tired of hearing me saying it. And I'm tired of saying it. But I have to, because it's so clear. It's so clear that this New Orleans Saints team does not have the leadership that it needs. And there's only one place where you can make that change over the course of the season. And that's at quarterback. If you still want to try to win games, yeah, you can make a change at head coach if you want to, but that's not going to happen in a first year head coach, right? That would be a stain on the organization for the New Orleans Saints, who are very likely at this point, I would say maybe more than 50% might be looking for another another head coaching option this offseason, because things just aren't working with Dennis Allen. Let's be real. But you're not going to make that change in the middle of the season. You make that change in the middle of the season, you appoint an interim guy, you're punting the season at that point. But if you want to maintain competitive, if you want to still show free agents that this is a destination with a winning culture, even when the team is losing, right? And I want to speak a little bit to what that looks like, because you can see it when you're in the Saints locker room. You can see what a winning culture for a losing team looks like. It's there. It's there, and it's undeniable. Absolutely undeniable. So we'll break that down here in a second. But if you want to make a change, where you have to make that change is at quarterback. And Andy Dalton is not winning you games. It's not happening.
Funny enough, when asked if he's considering making a change at quarterback, Saints coach Dennis Allen did not shoot down the question.
I think we got to look at everything. Yeah, I think we got to look at everything. So we'll and that'll be a process that we'll go through over the rest of today and tomorrow, and as we get ready for the Rams.
Here's the problem for the Saints. They are living the old adage that if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have one. And this cuts to the core of their ideology as a team that is perpetually all in. You can be perpetually all in when Drew Brees is your quarterback, going every season to push all those chips to the middle of the table when you have a Hall of Fame quarterback who can pick up the pieces if you bust, because you have him the next season. The Saints went into this season making aggressive moves to trade up for players that, in the case of Chris Olave, have helped them this season, but in a season that doesn't look like it's going to matter. So when you are not getting that high-level quarterback play, and even at the end, the Saints were not getting the highest of high-level quarterback play from Drew Brees, but they were still able to do enough around him because he's always making the right decisions. That's not the case with Andy Dalton. That's not the case with Jameis Winston. It's not the case with Taysom Hill. So they just didn't have the personnel to approach this season like they approached this season. And this is what's happening. It's appropriate. We had Travis Rogers on to talk about the LA Rams, the bill coming due. Well, they have Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey and Matthew Stafford, assuming Matthew Stafford health-wise can be the guy that he was much of last season. What do the Saints have? They have an outmoded ideology for the roster, and particularly the quarterbacks that they have. And finally, I had heard about a timber shortage, but this is ridiculous. Okay, I joke, but someone paid one heck of a premium for a bat used by Ty Cobb during his rookie season. The earliest known bat to have been used by Cobb sold for over $1 million on Sunday night. What's crazier still is this isn't even the most expensive Cobb bat that's ever been auctioned. In March 2021, a bat Cobb used for 7 seasons, including his last one, sold for $1.1 million. It is worth noting that the bat from his rookie season, 117 years ago, received a perfect condition rating and has a letter of authenticity. That is some good wood. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Now go find your favorite team's Locked On podcast and make them your second listen. Coming up on tomorrow's show, who can challenge the Eagles in the NFC? So at least until tomorrow, stay Locked On Sports Today.
Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey present Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on Sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.